Okay, my name is Anita Kocsis. I'm the director of Design Factory Melbourne here in Australia. We are part of a group of design factories, and although this lofty title suggests what I'm going to talk about, it is an important title because the aspect of facilitation, co-creation, experimentation, innovation is our kind of DNA. Design Factory is located or has grown out here, the School of Design, but the term design is a little problematic, a little bit too close to the School of Design, and I want to qualify that in a minute. Because design factories are mental and physical platforms for interdisciplinary, industry-integrated project-based learning. And they really are there to, our mission is really to bring together university and industry and organisations to collaborate better. And we do that through disrupting the process. The traditional models of, teacher, student, client gives the brief, and then we go and, nicely please the client to solve the brief. Those models we turn on its head and pretty much have done this through this network of design factories. It grew out of Airto Ekman's vision in Aalto University, Aalto Design Factory, about 15 years ago, where basically here's an engineer doing engineering with engineers on its own, has its limitations if you're trying to innovate and bring industry and university to collaborate better. He put the idea together, wow, why don't we bring designers and business people together? And from that, we basically have continued that recipe, which is interdisciplinary teams of people, students, researchers, academics from K to 12 right through to PhD, postdocs, who are working together to solve industry problems, real problems. But the thing that makes this unique really is the culture. And that cultural component is what drives what we do and why we get out of bed in the morning and why we believe there's no going back. Because the culture component really drives the creative element, in that there are fundamental precepts with Design Factory, and that are all people have potential, fail fast, fail forward, your parents don't work here, talk to someone new, safety comes first. There are these basic principles that you would think you see at a kindergarten, but they sit within a university industry hybrid area driving for engagement and R&D impact. And it's this principle of creativity and those various elements that enable us to be a prototype in ourselves. We are constantly under iteration, we are constantly striving to do better, do differently, and to do that with a co-creation community, with anyone who walks through the door and is interested. And I know that sounds like hippie trite, but it actually is the case. We support and facilitate a culture of engagement to make that happen. So what's that got to do with space? Well, it's got everything to do with space, because the space drives the experiences, and the space is the construct in which tells people it's okay to be here, it's okay to fail, it's okay to experiment, it's okay to talk to someone new. You're not going to trip over a plug and hurt yourself. You are going to do some prototyping, and you're not going to do anything wrong. You're going to discover new things. And you can see here really it's around short and long, so it's spatial temporal, but it's also singular to co-experience. And we are open to that dynamic. But it's a really clever way to change culture. So as you can see, the sauna, big deal for the Finns. For us, it could be a shed, doesn't really matter. But space really does influence how we drive our culture and the activities we do. So this is a great little meeting room. And when we're all huddled up like that on the bench, it's a very different dynamic to sitting around a boardroom table or a bunch of chairs that are a little bit uncomfortable or a whole bunch of lounge suites in front of one screen. They're very different dynamics. Just like this now, me talking, you passively observing, but actively engaging and hopefully thinking not just about what you're going to eat, but what elements here are going to resonate for you. And there is a limit to the way in which we construct the space, because the space really supports and influences the culture and the processes that take place. It enables the processes to take place, and I'll explain about that in a minute. And that really has to do with the experience. So they are cyclical. It's not just, let's build a grand, wonderful education environment, hero space, and they will come and something will happen. We actually don't believe that at all. First come the people and they drive the space. And they can build the space to suit them. The things that are important to us, and this is apparent in Alison Coddington's work and Paulina Matula, our coach, is these key elements around the spatio-temporal, the activities important, the culture, the context, and it can be virtual and, of course, physical. And the thing that I wanted to really speak to today, the takeaway, is the trigger. What are the triggers that tell us that this space is an environment that is conducive to experiences that are hopefully conducive to innovation opportunity? So the triggers have to do with the environment and the activities to support the mindset so innovation can happen. Innovation isn't just some silky blanket you chuck on something and hope it happens. So it's the environmental triggers I wanted to just quickly suggest today. That the space has to be transparent. You've got to see what's going on so you can possibly think about or learn about the activities there. Just by osmosis, just by a quick glance. It can be ubiquitous, it can be constructed, it can be directed. It's got to be flexible. We know that. If it can't be flexible, there is not enough space to do all the many things we want to do in the world. But by being flexible, we are also required to be creative. And culture is at the front and centre, and that's key in our space. There's a hug me point in all design factories, and when you stand on them long enough, someone will come and give you a hug. And it's asynchronous. What you leave today, tomorrow someone might pick up. And that's also very important. Not all things happen between 1 and 3 in that lecture and that stuff gets delivered and that's the end of the story. Asynchronous interaction is really important when you're dealing with many design factories, time zones, cultures, timetabling issues. And of course, a really important one, which is serendipitous interactions. We have breakfasts and everyone, you are all invited, everyone is invited to our breakfasts. Because the person that you sit next to when you speak to someone new, you don't know who they are, what they do, how, and it's a great learning environment for our people. Not our people who happen to be students, who happen to be staff, who happen to be researchers, who happen to be administrators, and who happen to be industry partners and organisations who turn up to participate in the experience. And of course, it's got to be a space to collaborate. And you've got to be able to build to think and think to build. And you have to keep the supplies and tools visible. There's no point having this great set of stuff if no one knows they can't use it. So what we do in design factories, we provide the permission to empower people to alter their working and learning environments. That's really it. And that's what makes innovation possible for us. Thank you. I hope that gave you a quick fix.
Thanks, Anita. I found that fascinating. Any questions?
Hey, yeah. Please.
I'm just interested whether I would be interested whether it's possible to find a case study somewhere about the design factory, how it worked in one particular case, and what were the outcomes.
You're asking me if there are case studies of the outcomes of these design factories?
Yep.
You could go online and just Google them. Design factories, the first one really, the design factory concept was 15 years ago now. Then Tonji Design Factory came next, and then Design Factory here in Melbourne. And so it goes. I think each will have their own case studies and stories. And are you asking me whether or not it's worked? Or are you asking me what the effects of it are down the track?
More the second one, what the effects?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think each design factory will have its own story and its own evidence. I believe, based on our 4-year process, is that the fact that we are integral to the innovation precinct here at Swinburne and provide that opportunity, which is cross-faculty, cross-discipline, hybrid opportunities for research and thinking and doing. We're kind of we're neutral territory, so I think that in itself has become valuable.
Thank you.
But I think you should do some research yourself and look around.
Okay.
One of the points that stood out for me is where participants, they put down their work and then other people can take on that project or add to it and so forth. Is this really getting back to kind of pre-modern, in some ways, ideas about who, I know artists used to sign their work anonymously. This is sort of... what I'm getting at is who owns the work. Sorry.
That's a very good question. I guess I forgot to qualify that the term design in design factory is a little problematic because every project that we do is interdisciplinary teams, which means engineer, designer, business student, coder, entrepreneur, plus industry partner are always in that team. We work to solve the industry partner problem. Most of our projects, the IP is theirs. We're not interested in keeping IP. And the learning for the team is what is paramount for us. And they don't just deliver the brief, they are responsible for the co-creation in those teams. So I know your idea of kind of which came sort of from the early surrealists. If you think about their artwork, when someone would draw something and then leave it to the next person. We also do that with user testing, but it's still one brief and it's still always industry oriented. It's not made up problem solving. These are real projects by real industry partners, which give the student teams and the teams credibility, the soft skills, the professional skills, and authentic experiential learning, because you can't, I believe, really do that without that tension in the room.
Question up there?
Hello.
Do you have any insights into how these tips about space could translate to a shared science space?
That's a really great question. And I think that in our next generation of collaboration, if we look at what goes on at the design factory version at CERN in Geneva, the principles are still all there, the ones that I spoke about that help the triggers. I think the rules around, in the same way that the hard prototyping stays in the factory of the future or in the workshops, similarly with the hard experiments that could be of danger, are treated as serious boundary-type work environments. But everything else, and I think you would be best placed to think about that, because you've had that experience across these sectors, design and science, is that I still believe that interdisciplinary lens is really important, because one of the critiques around the design factory thinking is that why would I let my students go and become part of interdisciplinary teams? It would take away from their expert knowledge, their expertise. And particularly in some of the more hard subjects, hard is in not difficult, but is in hard traditional subjects, I think that collaboration is really important. And the impact of design thinking on science, and the impact of scientific experimentation and the processes that go with that on design, I believe they must be interconnected, and I think space has to facilitate that.
And I have a question.
Sure.
While I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that's exactly what learning design is like, that experience of learning design interdisciplinary, and I love the way you describe that about getting collaboration going and recognition of the different disciplines. So I'm thinking the way you presented it was quite universal in its tone, and as a learning design, to articulate that, I think that we'd be, in the Learning Transformations Unit, be really interested in having that as a sort of formal pedagogy and a way of modelling, of working and modelling it. So
That's great.
yeah.
The thing is, the doing is primary.
Yes. Well,
theory is one to the doing, and that's why prototyping, the capacity, going back to your earlier question, the capacity to prototype. So your idea of a pedagogy and the person next to you is maybe very different until you can prototype that and act it, physically test it, bring it to the theatre, or whichever way it can physically manifest. We makes that still just a theoretical discussion.
And all of it is theoretical until you do it.
Yeah.
Which is what I like about it.
Yeah,
it's great. Thank you. Are there any? Yeah, I will. And I'd encourage you all to too. Both from the point of view of meeting people, but also from the point of view of modelling collaboration in your own field with your own teachers, with your own colleagues and everything. So thanks very much, Anita. That was really interesting.